Biscuits. Do you think Florida or California is more fun to live in or visit? Let's find out. Oh, I love comparing states. Something about the U.S. that I really greatly enjoy is how different states are. Oh my goodness. I've crisscrossed doing road trips over the years, and everywhere is really different. I mean, there are spots in this country that really feel like their own unique countries. Like, it is so diverse, it's so big, it always surprises me how much it feels like that. So we're going to compare California to Florida weather. Ooh. So I feel like weather is so subjective for the most part. Now I'm comparing like Central and Southern California because like that's where I've lived, so I'm more familiar with it. Northern California has its own weather systems, and it's kind of a different bird altogether. So Central and Southern California, coastal regions. You know, we don't count the inland. That's desert. So, this is okay. Coastal Central and Southern California has kind of a Mediterranean climate, so it's very dry, and California's been in a drought, I think, my entire life, actually. Amazingly so, it just keeps getting worse. But so it doesn't have a lot of humidity, but it has a lot of sunshine, and you get those coastal fogs in the summer that are really beautiful. Florida, you get the moisture and the heavier rain. You get all that humidity, that soft skin humidity that makes everything sticky. Now, California, you get earthquakes, fires, and mudslides. In Florida, you get hurricanes and flooding. So boy, who has the better weather? I think California has more livable weather along the coast because it's really temperate. Like, as long as you don't mind having super dry weather. I actually kind of like rain, so like I'm a weirdo, but for the most part, I think it's easier to do stuff year-round Southern California coast than Florida, because Florida can get really hot and humid, and it can be hard to want to be outside. Natural disaster-wise, I'll call it a draw, which I know everybody would think Florida first, but I mean, I've literally been stuck in California visiting family because of so many natural disasters that I couldn't even get to the airport. That's happened to us. So I'm going to say California wins on weather, but it's subjective. I just think you can be outdoors more. It's just not as good for like swimming. Like Florida's warmer and nicer for swimming, but California, if you're just like meandering about, boop, 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 I think it wins on the weather. Okay, what was our next one? Ease of making friends. Ooh. This is so subjective too, or particular to locations. So Southern California people are very much like Miami people. They're I'm generalizing, by the way, Biscuits. Don't worry, it's okay. There's a lot of materialistic people that live in Southern California. You Biscuits remember my famous story of, I mean, famous to me, not to anybody else, just heard of, I mean, when I was dating in California, I remember somebody took my bread basket away from me and was like, oh yeah, don't eat carbs. Like, as I was reaching in on this date, it was the first day to get some bread. They're like, don't eat carbs. I had somebody tell me I should get a nose job, and then told me about their family that got nose jobs. It's really easy. It would make you look so much more feminine. It's shocking. It's shocking how vain and materialistic Southern California people are. It's part of why I moved, is I was like, whoa, I don't know if this is a good environment to raise a kid in. And parts of Florida are like that, but parts of Florida can be really laid back. So, ooh, ease of making friends. I think Florida might be a little bit friendlier. Southern California, Central California, coastal areas, there's a lot of concentrated money and snootiness and how old is your family wealth there? And do we associate with you? Oh, your car is older than 2 years. Your house is worth less than $3 million. We just don't associate with those people, you know? And I feel like Florida's a little bit friendlier and a little bit less like that. So I think, like, I live in Washington State right now. California's better for making friends than Washington State, but I think Florida wins that one between California and Florida because Californians are a certain breed of people. They really are. There's just a mentality there, and I find it rubs off on me when I visit. You know, like, I think about what I'm wearing a little bit more, or, you know, am I wearing better shoes? And, like, up here where I live right now and in Florida, you can just wander around flip-flops and hang out, but there's definitely a vibe. There's a vibe in Southern California. It's a little bit harder to make friends. Well, real friends, like real connections that aren't just there because, you're in the same socioeconomic bracket, and they're like, oh, we'll be friends for that. And I was like, that's not a good reason to be friends. Cost of living. Okay. Straightforwards, Florida wins. Top to bottom, you can't deny it. Florida has a much better cost of living than California. California is just so exorbitantly expensive. I remember when I decided to move out of California, my son was like a year and a half, and I was trying to find a place for us to live, and it was just insane. And it's only gone up more now. So California has really expensive gas. You're gonna want earthquake insurance. It has very, very expensive real estate. Like, my hometown, I think, has the most expensive real estate per square foot in the entire country, which I always laugh about because then you go anywhere and it's cheaper. It's insane. Like, Santa Barbara is so expensive. In fact, I'm trying to think of all the kids I knew growing up. I can't think of any that have bought a home in Santa Barbara and stayed. I know some that have stayed in the state and moved elsewhere, but I can't think of anybody that I know, unless their parents bought it for them or left them money. Those are the only people I know that have bought. I know of adults that have moved back in their 40s and 50s with successful companies and bought places, but I don't know anybody my age or younger that has managed to find a house in Santa Barbara. That's how expensive the cost of living in Southern California is. Florida, you can buy a house on an average salary. You can live there a lot more easily. California is just extremely expensive. So I think cost of living, hands down. I'm trying to think if California or Florida has more expensive food. Florida's groceries feel like they're a little bit more than California groceries, but I don't know. California is really expensive. Land of the $8 avocado, right? $8 an avocado, that just offends me. Oh, who would charge that much? Ooh, what's the next one? How easy is it to get a house? Oh, well, I was just talking about that. Yeah, ease of getting a house. Okay, well, that's not really cost, is it? It's how easy to buy a house. I mean, maybe California. Okay, say you have an unlimited budget. I feel like, would it be easier to close? There's more new construction in Florida than there is in a lot of parts of coastal California because it's so built up, you can't have new construction. So I think it's easier to get a new construction house in Florida. It might be easier to close on some houses in California, only because you weren't looking at all the flood insurance complexities for a lot of places. So I'm going to say it's a tie on ease of finding a house, but ease of cost-wise, if your budget is not unlimited millionaire style, I'm going to say Florida on that one because California is bonkers. But you tell me in the comments because that's one that I'm kind of interested in. Which would you say is easier to buy in? And I don't know. California has really high taxes, which means not only are their houses more expensive, but then what you can afford is going to go way, way down. Stuff to do for families. I think Florida has more family stuff to do, depending on where you are. I think so. California has hang out at the beach culture, but you don't necessarily swim a ton because there's really rough waves and there's a lot of tar along the Southern California coast from oil refineries and things, or oil, what are those called? Oil platforms out in the water. So you get a lot of tar, so you don't spend as much time swimming. Also, the water is really polluted. But there's the beach culture, and then swimming pool culture, I would say. I'm trying to think what we do with kids there. You know what's funny is when I was taking my son to music class when we lived in California, I think I was the only one that was the mom in the class. Everybody else was a full-time nanny, a grandparent. I think I was the only mom. In fact, I tried to befriend the other moms, and that's when I realized none of them were mothers or of these kids. And so they kind of didn't want to hang out with me because they're like, well, yeah, we aren't moms, or were the help. And I was like, well, I can be the help too. Let's hang out. So I think Florida is a little bit, you've got more like naturally things to do. Now, if you go up north, you have amazing hiking in Northern California. Southern California doesn't have a lot of great hiking, in my opinion. If you're into surfing, that's cool, but like young kids can't really surf. So I think Florida is better for families overall. But that's a tough call because it depends what you want to be doing with your families. I think there's more to do in Florida than California. But I will report back when we go on our California adventure trip for filming for things. So I'm going to report back from there because maybe my opinion will change. We'll see. We'll see what I think. Outdoor activities. Okay, year-round, I think California is better for being outdoors because you have less heat and humidity. It still gets hot, but just less hot and humid. Things to do outdoors, I think you have more options in Florida. You have a ton of beaches. You have the cold springs. I feel like, oh, that's a tough one. California, you have a ton of outdoor stuff, like stand-up paddleboarding, kayaking, boating, go into the Channel Islands. You can go to like to Arrowhead and go play in the snow or in. Who's better for outdoors? That's a tough one. Okay, I'm gonna say overall California because it's such a big state that it has more diversity. Like you can go hike the redwoods, you can go down and hang out at the beach. So I'm gonna say California for outdoor activities, but Florida has really good ones too. But I'm gonna say California inches it out only because it's got such a diverse state. It has so many different weather patterns and microclimates to do things in. So that's what I'm gonna count it as. Driving. Do we count LA? I'm gonna say California wins on driving too, actually. I think it's easier to drive in California than Florida. Some of the Florida freeways, I've like, I mean, truly, I've had like suck your breath away, scary incidences in Florida driving. So I'm gonna say California for driving, but where are you more likely to be hit by an uninsured non-citizen driver? I'm gonna say California probably. California's much more forgiving about that stuff. I'm not making a political comment on that. I'm just like, I'm thinking, where are you more likely to be hit by something? Probably there. You're also in California probably more likely to be hit by drunk drivers with all the wineries that are in the area. It's insane how many drunkards are driving on the road. There are roads in California I will not drive. I'll go 45 minutes out of my way because I so don't want to drive those roads for safety reasons because I know who's driving them and it's scary. Okay, that was all our comparisons. So overall, do I think California or Florida is more livable? Okay, average person, normal humans, I'm going to say Florida because I think that the cost to live in California between taxes and cost of living is so high that it just kind of crushes your ability to live comfortably unless you're very wealthy. Florida, I think, offers more of a chance to live in a very nice environment with tons of beaches equally to California, but without the crushing strain of trying to afford it. Yeah, I'm gonna say Florida wins out on this one. I know, I'm sorry for California biscuits. I know I have family in California. I was born there, but I just think it's a really hard state to live in for an average person. It is both the culture and the practical everyday things. It's just a hard state to live in. It really is. I really only go back to visit family and because sometimes I have work projects down there. Because it's a hard place to live. It is. Florida, I feel like, is a little bit easier and more laid back to live in. So I think Florida wins on this one. Okay, biscuits, tell me down below, do you think this is true or am I totally crazy and I haven't seen sunlight in so long that I know not what state I speak of? Okay, biscuits, see you in the next video.